I think the first type of difficult people, and we've all experienced them, are like bummers, the downers in life.
Yeah, man.
They're always something negative to say. Everything's a drag. They complain and critique and they judge, and they're pretty hard to please. They're bummers.
I know some.
Yeah. So that's one kind of a difficult person.
Okay.
Second is the know-it-alls, or we'll call them the better-thans.
Okay.
They like to try to impress you. They'll name drop, or they'll compare what they have or have done to everybody else. They always have a better story or a better way or answer for everything. They're kind of show-offs.
Yeah, they wear me out.
Kind of like that Brian Regan thing about the guy who has the social fantasy of he wished he was one of the people who had walked on the moon. So
Yeah.
People start reeling out their stories.
The one-upper.
Yeah,
Always
exactly.
ones up it. Yeah.
I walked on the moon, So the know-it-alls, right? The better-thans.
Yep.
That's another kind of, they're hard to deal with.
Welcome to the Everyday Disciple podcast, where you'll learn how to live with greater intentionality and an integrated faith that naturally fits into every area of life. In other words, discipleship as a lifestyle. This is the stuff your parents, pastors, and seminary professors probably forgot to tell you. And now, here's your host, Caesar Kalinowski.
Hey, Heath. How you feeling, brother? Did you do anything cool this weekend?
I didn't. Not much. I mean,
You're not off.
No,
You're
just
not
the
off
new
today.
Yeah, Monday's my jam. So,
Yeah, well.
how about you?
Well, I'm living the dream. I never work. I mean, I just do this podcast once in a while, and, I'm pretty much every day is
Still
a
in your
day
pajamas
off.
right now?
Yeah, I totally. So, the grandkids come. No, it's a work day for me, brother.
Always.
Every day. It's all good.
Hey, let's call out one of our latest reviews from Julie 5280, who said, "I'm not a big podcast listener, but these podcasts make me feel right at home. Easy to listen to, theologically sound, spiritually relevant, and the hosts have a sense of humor too."
Yuck.
I've learned a lot. A great addition to your personal Bible study or Sunday sermon.
Oh,
Thanks.
Julie. Thanks.
Julie 5280, wherever you are. Appreciate it. Hey, today we're talking about people in our lives that are just sometimes can nag us and rub us the wrong way. And I know that we both
Come
have
on, man.
people
You
in our
love
lives.
everybody perfectly. Perfect love.
Yes. Yeah, right. I would say that I know that I have those people in my life. I know you have those people in your life that just kind of rub you the wrong way. And I'd actually...
You're on that list when you're not around. But I mean, when you're not around, you're on that. Oh.
Okay. I was like, what are you saying, man? But I'm also assuming that every listener of the show probably has those people as well that just sort of, they nag at us, they gnaw at us.
We kind of jokingly refer to them as the EGRs.
Oh, yeah.
The extra grace required people.
Yeah, you need a little bit of extra.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people have heard that term, others have not. Most people chuckle, chortle, There's that humor again, Julie. But yeah, there are people, right? We all have them where it's just like, yikes. I don't, does everybody get along with everybody?
Yeah. They're the ones that we accidentally...
Did Jesus just hang out with everybody and loved it?
I don't know. They're the ones you accidentally not invite to things like, oh man, I thought you were on the list. And
Now you just lied.
didn't,
So now you turned personal preference into outright sin.
my sin is exposed on this show. What would you say about that? I know you have these people.
Well, I have to wonder that, and I'm sure I'm on a bunch of people's list of like, this guy, he's an EG. I'm a pretty strong drink there. Yeah, I have to think that's pretty common, and I see it even in Scripture, right? Because you just see Paul not get along with Mark at some point, right?
Sure.
Sends him off, but then it's not like Mark is like a dirtbag we never hear from again. He writes a gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Paul doesn't get to write a gospel, right?
Exactly.
And so I don't think it's unusual, and I don't think it's even sinful. You just go like, certain people don't, I just don't necessarily get along with them. Now there are some people though that are just difficult people.
Okay.
They are. We all have brokenness. We all have things in our life, and some of them show up socially a lot more than others, right?
Sure.
But there are definitely difficult people. And think about the people in your own life and figure out what is going on with them. Let me start out by saying, there's probably more ways to categorize this, but let me give you 4 types of difficult people.
Okay.
So at least as we unpack some of this today, we can
kind of know where we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the first type of difficult people, and we've all experienced them, are like bummers, the downers in life.
Yeah, man.
They're always something negative to say. Everything's a drag. They complain and critique and they judge, and they're pretty hard to please. They're bummers.
I know some.
Yeah. So that's one kind of a difficult person.
Okay.
Second is the know-it-alls, or we'll call them the better-thans.
Okay.
They like to try to impress you. They'll name drop or they'll compare what they have or have done to everybody else. They always have a better story or a better way or answer for everything. They're kind of show-offs.
Yeah, they wear me out.
Kind of like that Brian Regan thing about the guy who has the social fantasy of he wished he was one of the people who had walked on the moon. So
Yeah.
people start reeling out their stories.
The one-upper.
Yeah,
Always one's
exactly.
up it. Yeah.
I walked on the moon. So the know-it-alls, right? The better thans. That's another kind of. They're hard to deal with. Here's another one. Gossips.
Oh,
They're often really passive aggressive. So you're like, oh, but they may be quiet when they're in a crowd. But then they have nothing good to say when they're talking about people behind their back, and they can breed distrust and hurt in a community.
Yep.
They really do. It's just they're kind of silent when they're there, but then they're not, and it's they're tough stuff. And then what I like to call the fourth kind of person that's kind of difficult to deal with, I call them grenades.
Right.
They're known for being explosive. They're a problem. They're just plain bossy. They always want to have their way, and they'll sort of maneuver everything and everybody to try to get it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, in a minute, I'll talk about what motivates each of those four different people types, those difficult people types.
Yeah.
Like what motivates them to act the way they do? What's going on in their hearts, right?
So do you think that Jesus, he got to handpick his disciples and kind of had control over his schedule and that? Do you think Jesus actually had difficult people in his own life, or do you think that he didn't even think in terms like that because he viewed everybody as family?
Yeah, like if you created everybody, they're all your kids. Yeah.
Can't be.
I think he clearly did. I mean, if you just look at even the ones he picked, remember his dad gave him the list. Jesus went away and prayed and said, hey, there's a whole lot of people hanging out. Who should I pour into, right?
Right.
And his father gave him the 12. But you look at that list of who those are, they had to be the biggest bunch of hairballs to hang out with. You got a tax collector, so a Jewish guy who is sided with Rome, who's ripping everybody off, hanging out with a working class fisherman. And if you've ever worked with like longshoremen or dock workers,
they're rough.
They're rough, right? And then you got these brothers whose mommy is going to Jesus and asking him, for like a favor I'm thinking there was plenty of EGRs. It might have been purposely a whole list of difficult people, just to show you like, hey, watch what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
You think about Luke chapter 6. Jesus is taking a little Sabbath stroll with his disciples, and the Pharisees pop up out of the bushes, and they accuse him of breaking the Sabbath by picking grain. And Jesus doesn't get flustered, he's not scared. He handles it, right? Because he's not really that worried about what other people think. That's not his focus. His dad is, right? So that was another example in Scripture. There's the time when Jesus sort of ticks off all his old neighbors and friends from his hometown in Nazareth, and so they work it out. They're going to try to throw him off the cliff. Remember that?
That's right.
Like I've never, I've had some things in community go rough, bro, but no one's ever like thrown me off the garage, So, so Jesus had that going on, right?
Yeah.
And he sees there's no reasoning with those people, so he just walks away. He ignores it. It's weird. He doesn't sit there and say, whoa, 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 I'm the son of man, son of God. Let's talk about this. Clearly you're in the wrong.
Sure.
He just peace out.
He Irish goodbyes it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you, man. He's gone. Yeah. Right. Matthew 15, we read about the Canaanite woman who, sort of demands that Jesus heals her daughter.
Sure.
And Jesus says no, but then he's moved by her response of faith, and he goes ahead and he heals her daughter. So we can see that Jesus kind of has an open mind, even with people that might at first, like he's like, I don't have time for this, right?
Yeah.
So when a difficult people kind of show up in our world, we may think, oh, great, here we go again, or oh, I know how this always goes the same. But try to keep an open mind. That's the little thing there. But I guess to go back to your question, I think Jesus had plenty of people in his sphere, not just in the 12, but obviously people he was running into in the crowds and teachers of the law and all that stuff. Clearly.
So one of the things, I love that you just unpacked you gave 4 examples of types of people that come across different ways. And we often on this show talk about the thing behind the thing with issues, because, whatever we see on the surface, something deeper is going on, right? So maybe we could take a chance at jumping through each one of these 4 different groups and looking at what's going on, not only with them, but what also is going on in our own hearts when we find ourselves getting just completely annoyed with these folks.
Yeah. Good. Let's start with that list of 4.
Yep.
And what's going on? What's the thing behind the thing in their hearts? And then we'll do a little surgery on our own. How about that?
Deal.
Okay. So the downers, the bummers. Here's what I think is going on with people that are just kind of always a bummer. They're not believing that God is actually good. like he always does and only does what is good and right and
Sure.
perfect. And they believe that he's not really running the world very well. And they secretly believe they could do a better job for themselves and
Wow.
probably for you.
Gosh.
That's what's going on for people that are just always bummed. Because think about it, especially if you're saying, hey, this is a Christian, and they're just always bummed. There's
Yeah.
just no joy there. Well, God must just be doing a suck job. He's
Yeah.
just sucking it up. Right?
Never thought about that.
Okay, for the know-it-alls or the better thans, they're not believing that God's grace is huge and it covers them. So when you don't believe in grace, like when you really haven't accepted God's unmerited favor, then you're constantly trying to prove yourself to others. You're trying to prove yourself to other people. You're trying to prove yourself to yourself. Watch how look at me. I came off feeling pretty good there.
Sure.
And in baseline, what's really beneath that even is in some way they're even trying to prove themselves worthy of God's love. Like, look what I've done. Look what I've finished. See, I did that. They didn't do that. That's why I always one up in people. Hey, God's keeping score.
Yeah.
But God's own son came
Yeah.
and gave his life that we might be forgiven and eternally restored. I mean,
And
wow.
Jesus redefined the scoreboard.
Yeah. So, but if you don't believe in grace, then you're going to always try to be one up in everybody.
Sure.
The gossips, again, they don't believe that God is gracious and he's the glorious one. He's the original. He's the most glorious and that he loves them exactly as they are. So they think they have to tear others down. And then in that way, it makes room for them to be loved by God or maybe by you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a combination there of not really experiencing truly God's grace and that God's not the most glorious one like you are. It's like, if I tear them down, I'll look a little better to you because you're glorious to me right now.
Yeah.
I need your approval,
Makes sense.
And then the grenades, those people that are kind of known for blowing up and trying to get their way and everything, they're just not believing that God is great. And so therefore they don't have to be in control of everyone. They're trying to be sovereign. And the reason they're exploding and getting angry all the time and flipping out is because they can't control everybody and every outcome and every political opinion. And so that's what's going on. Their sovereignty,
Yeah.
false sovereignty, is being thwarted. Like, hey, and so that's why they're grenades. They're always blowing up. They're angry because they don't believe God is great. And so they want to try to control everything just in
Wow.
case. God probably needs my help here. Otherwise, there's no way Heath would be thinking this about that.
Sure.
Or we wouldn't be eating dinner this late. We would have eaten earlier. But, it's like,
Yeah.
boom,
Man, that makes so much sense. I've not thought about it in those terms before,
Yeah.
but
And
there's
that's
always
so
something deeper
important.
going on.
It's so important because you're going to have these folks. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be your best friend. But if we can start by going, hey, what's going on in their hearts that, connected to the gospel, then that's a good place to start.
Sure.
How do I deal with them, right?
Well, then what would you say to us? Like, what is the thing behind the thing for us when we're getting upset with loving these difficult people?
Well, believe it or not, it's kind of a mixture of all of those same things.
Huh.
Like when I'm getting upset with a person who is a grenade,
Sure.
like they're trying to control everything. It's because, wait a minute, they're trying to control everything. We're at my house tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or listen, I made the dinner. This is what we're having. If it's too salty, it's not salty enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that might be going on. If someone swings in and they try to one up everybody's story,
Yeah.
you're like, well, I was kind of just listening and I was being much more politer than that. But, look, I got one too. Right.
Yeah.
So like ultimately what's going on there is we're loving ourselves better than them in the moment. The reason the EGRs, extra grace required people, bug us
Yep.
for whatever one of the categories they're in or whatever the reason is because the truth is we don't love them that much. We love ourselves more. And so the things that they're doing that we are all guilty of at some point.
Sure.
There's not one of these four things that we've not done.
Yeah, exactly. Or do
Right.
constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Or really often. Yeah. Then what's going on is we really don't love them that much. We love ourselves more. And so what we'd like to do is I don't want to have to show them grace.
Sure.
Like they got God's grace. That should be enough for them, So what would be better is just to avoid them. Or, it'd be better that, to avoid, I don't want to be gossiped about. I just want to hang out with the person. That fixes
Sure.
it. Instead of saying, at times I don't believe God's the most glorious one. And so I'll kind of try to sort of stack the deck a little and make myself look a little better. Or,
Yep.
I'll say something real. I'm pretty careful about it, though. It won't come off exactly like gossip, but it'll make me look a little better. Because I want them to think well of me, because I want to serve them.
Sure.
It's really because I want to help them. And it's kind of BS, So we're kind of guilty of all the same things. But the thing behind those things is we love ourselves and our glory a whole lot more then we love those people and want God to get the glory as he continues to redeem and restore them.
Yeah.
And guess how he's going to do that? How does God restore and redeem people and all their weirdness and brokenness? By using other people.
Yeah, it's community.
Yeah, like weird, broken people don't just wake up one day, boop, restored.
Yeah.
Like that, no need to gossip anymore. My anger problem's fixed. I don't know what happened. I just woke up.
Sure.
How does it happen? It happens to people who will love and help talk about their own belief and help remind them and restore them to the truth.
Yeah.
And then help them walk in light of that truth. I don't want to do that sometimes. That's why I love me more.
That's good.
That's what's going on there, man.
All right, so you've given us a lot of understanding, painted some great pictures about why people can be so difficult and even what's going on in their hearts and our hearts, which I'm super grateful for. As we're finishing up today, maybe you could give us a few practical real-world things that would help us remember as we go forward in dealing with difficult people.
Well, I think baseline is, and I know everybody's listening to right now and they're thinking about certain people.
Sure.
Right? There's certain people in their mind. You and I both have them. It's just real. Don't try and change them. Try and understand people. There again, that goes right back to what we started with, trying to give you what's the thing behind the thing. If you sit in a position of like, I'm gonna change this person, I got to fix that.
Right.
Then you kind of have pitted yourself over and against their will. Think about that.
Wow.
And over and against their brokenness or their fear or their unbelief. And I'm just reminded. Paul tells us that our battle is not against flesh and blood.
You're right, man.
Right? So don't try to change people. Try to understand them. And if possible, when appropriate, in the right settings, try to help them see the truth behind whatever it is that they're flipping out on and move from unbelief to belief or some lie they're believing about another person in the community or about you, and that's what's, causing them to do that. Try to understand them and then try to help them move to belief and let the Spirit of God work in that.
That's good.
But I have to say this too, there is a caveat. If things don't start to get better or a person just won't receive that ever, and you've taken them aside, you've been gentle with them, you've not just tried to, blow their doors off sitting there, in front of a whole bunch of people. If that person is toxic or they're physically dangerous even, then you're going to need to help them not participate in certain things or activities with the family,
Sure.
capital F family, at least until things change. And I can tell you, we've had people that they were just toxic and weird and argumentative. And after loving on them hard and treating them like family and talking to them about it, we had to invite them to not participate, say, in family dinner night anymore. Hey, brother, I'm just going to invite you to not come back until this and this changes.
Yeah.
Now, I still want to hang out with you. I want to keep going to the gym, or let's we still got Scar and Theology. But this environment, I don't know, man, it's flipping your, switches and it's not getting better.
It's not working.
I've also been in situations where I remember one in particular, there was a pretty broken young man in the community. And whenever I was not around, like I'd be out of town or I wouldn't be at a family dinner night or somewhere out serving or just, game night or whatever we're doing, this person would always pick a fight with another guy. Like he was trying to be the alpha male or something.
Huh.
They would always, I get a text every time, "Hep, so-and-so, boom." I don't know why he went up and pushed so-and-so in the chest out of the blue, but it was because he was talking to this girl and,
Right.
and so we eventually had to say, "Hey, brother, you know what? You don't get to come to family dinner night anymore. Not until this and this changes." And a couple things happened. He got really upset. I'm just going to say it. He wasn't like, "Oh, I'm really sorry."
So, yeah.
He got really upset and kind of just ghosted us for a couple months. But then little by little, he kind of started coming by the house because we never said, "Hey, you're out of the family."
Sure.
It's just, think about parenting, right? And with kids. Yeah. If you're one child, your son is clobbering his little sister with a car in the head. After enough times of talking about it, you just take the car away.
Sure.
Yeah,
we're
it's not like
doing
I
that.
hate you or you're not my son or she's not your sister, but the car gone. You
Sure.
lost that privilege. And so we had to do that. But then eventually, through hanging out and still being like family, he's sort of started and worked his way back into community with folks. But then he kind of started flipping out again and eventually he moved away.
Oh,
Yeah. But that's just the reality of that part of that story. But what did happen in the community with everybody else is they were grateful because they felt protected.
Sure.
So instead of this sometimes violent person just popping off all the time, especially when I wasn't around, and I don't know why that was, maybe just because he respected me or something.
Sure.
But everybody, especially the sisters in the community, they were feeling a little freaked out by it. He's always kind of hitting on them. And he was a little weird, and
Sure.
they felt so protected And they were glad that it wasn't like, you blew that guy's doors off, man. You reduced him to ashes. Like, no, love the guy.
Yeah.
He gets to choose now what he does with that. But they felt super protected. You just didn't let it go on. So you got to remember, don't try to change people, try to understand them. But if they are toxic or dangerous or harmful with their words and actions and they're not listening, then and even if they're a believer, then, what does it say in Matthew? Like, treat them like an unbeliever.
Yeah.
What's that mean? Treat them like a broken, damaged brother or sister needs a lot of love. But you don't just let people keep hurting others.
Sure.
You have to move them off of that. So
I love that, man. You've given us so much already. I'm going to ask you for 3 more things.
Well, I'm going to summarize, but
Yeah,
the big 3.
The big 3. You get those for free, the free download, which is just the 3 takeaways we want you to leave with, even right now. You get it by going to everydaydisciple.com/big3. Caesar, what would you say the big 3 are for this week?
Number 1, remember, it's not your job to try and label and then fix everyone that you experience as difficult.
Okay.
Because the people that you experience as difficult, everybody else might go like, no, I don't see any issues. So it could just be a you thing, right?
Sure.
Who knows? You may be the difficult person on someone else's list. God is great, and you don't have to be in control. Seek to understand them, what they're going through, why they are the way they are, why they respond a certain way in a certain situation, and then look for ways that you can serve this person
Okay.
right then in the moment or later on, so that you can show them the value that you're placing on them, and ultimately you're mirroring how God sees them.
Sure.
Because God sees us in our broken state and loves us completely.
beautiful.
And he served us when we were yet sinners to the point of death.
Yeah.
So, you want to turn something around with people, don't label them, try to fix them, serve them, and watch what happens to their hearts.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Second of the big 3, difficult people present their need for the gospel really clearly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in other words, if they're consistently kind of popping off in the same way and kind of getting on your last nerve and everybody else the same way, they've made it pretty obvious what their gospel need is.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all in this for, discipleship, which is the process of helping people move from unbelief to belief, right? So I say, don't feel like, oh man, there's that gal again, and she's all, it's like, hey, thanks for making your gospel need really clear. So when you listen and ask good questions and seek to understand the thing behind the thing that we were talking about, guess what? It's always a gospel issue that leads to any of us being either difficult or argumentative or broken or whatever. It's always a gospel issue, something we're not believing about God and about ourselves. So what are they believing and not believing about you or this community or themselves or God right now?
Yep.
And how could you help them to see and understand the truth?
Love that, man.
That's your goal.
It's so simple if you're actually paying attention, right?
Yeah. Number 3, seek to have your own heart in a place of love before attempting to deal with a difficult person. So, if people can just tick us off or really be hurtful, before you address it or before you try to, help or protect or whatever, check your own heart. Try to get in a place of love before addressing it. What's your motive for wanting to address this person and how you're experiencing them? Is it focused on their good and God's glory, or primarily on yourself and how you want to run things or how you want the night to go or the event to go or the evening to go or whatever?
Sure.
Often when we take the time necessary to gently address a person in a way that they can hear from us and receive something, and it's helpful, a bond of trust is built that can change how they act and how they respond to us and how we then respond to them.
Yeah.
So, check your own heart before going in there.
Good words, man. Really good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
All right, you get those big 3, again, by going to everydaydisciple.com/big3. We'll get those right away to you. And if you haven't joined us in our Facebook group, go ahead to the search bar, type in Everyday Disciple Podcast.
You know what I'm loving about the Facebook group? We're getting a lot of good show ideas.
Yeah.
People are just bringing up great stuff
and
getting to kind of help us pre-flush out what's going on, what are the handles,
kind of reading the temperature where people are wanting to go.
I'm loving it. So I'd love to have more people in there with us.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information on this show and to get loads of free discipleship resources, visit everydaydisciple.com. And remember, you really can live with the spiritual freedom and relational peace that Jesus promised every day.